The October rain poured down mercilessly over the lakeside town, wrapped in a heavy blanket of mist. Lily Carter moved silently through the dark, her worn canvas shoes soaked through, the battered suitcase behind her dragging with a dull, steady thud along the deserted road. Inside that old case, her entire world was packed. A few faded clothes, a cheap box of watercolors, and her thin sketchbook, the only thing she had ever truly owned. For 22 years, Lily had never known a real home. Her birth parents had died before she could even remember their faces. Her foster parents took her in only to polish their reputation as a kind, respectable family everyone in town admired. To them, she was nothing more than a prop for their false charity, something to display, to brag about. Every family dinner was a performance in which they reminded her of the sacrifice they had made. Every scolding cut deeper than the last. "You owe us your whole life. Don't you dare dream above your station." Each time she asked to take proper art lessons, they laughed coldly. "A waste of money. Be grateful you're fed at all." Tonight, the final blow came like a knife. She had knelt on the living room floor, clutching her sketchbook to her chest, while her foster mother stood on the staircase, voice dripping with disdain. "You want freedom? Fine. Get out. And don't you dare come crawling back." The rain outside matched the storm inside Lily's chest as she stepped out into the darkness, leaving behind the brightly lit house that had never been warm. She followed the path along the lake, her heart shivering as much as her thin, trembling body. Thunder rumbled across the lake, vibrating in her chest, urging her frozen feet forward. On the dark, empty road, a single, warm light broke through the curtain of rain. An old manor house, silent at the water's edge, standing like a beacon in a stormy sea. In that moment, Lily whispered to herself, "Just one night, just somewhere to sleep. Tomorrow, I'll be gone again." She stood before the massive wooden door, drew in a shaky breath, and knocked. The sound echoed into the night. After a long pause, the door cracked open, spilling warm light into the cold dark, illuminating her rain-streaked face. The man standing before Lily was tall, his posture betraying fatigue, yet his eyes held a calm steadiness she had never seen before. Dark brown hair fell messily over his forehead, and ink stains on his hand hinted at long nights spent writing alone. He looked at her for a long moment, as if he could see straight through the soaked clothes and exhausted expression, then spoke, his voice deep and gentle, warmer than any blanket Lily had ever known. "What are you looking for out here in the rain?" Lily stood frozen at the slightly open doorway, rain dripping from her hair onto the polished wooden steps. She bit her lip, unsure how to answer. Her throat was dry. Any explanation felt pointless. I thought this was a guest house," she murmured, her eyes avoiding the stranger's calm gaze. He frowned lightly, but there was no suspicion in his expression. Instead, the corner of his mouth lifted, almost a gentle smile. "It's not, but you'll freeze to death out here if you keep standing there." He pushed the door wider, stepping aside. "Come in." Lily hesitated. Every warning she'd ever heard screamed in her head. Don't trust strangers. Don't walk into someone's house at night. But her frozen feet betrayed her fear, pulling her inside before her mind could stop them. The warmth inside wrapped around her like an unfamiliar embrace she never knew she needed. The scent of old wood, leftover coffee, and faint traces of paper and ink painted a world completely separate from the storm raging outside. The man shut the door behind her, his voice softer than the wind. "I'm Ethan Morgan. And you are?" "Lily." Her voice was barely more than a whisper. Ethan nodded. He gently slipped off her damp coat and hung it on the rack. The thin dress clinging to her skin made her shiver with embarrassment. "Wait here. I'll get you a towel and some dry clothes." Without another word, he disappeared down the hallway. Lily stood in the wide foyer, surrounded by shelves lined with books and unfinished sketches on the walls. The house didn't look like a lonely man's dwelling, yet it bore no signs of family either. No photos, no laughter, only a calm silence wrapped in warmth. Ethan returned carrying a large, fluffy towel and a loose sweater with sweatpants. He laid them on a wooden chair near the blazing fireplace. "The bathroom's at the end of the hallway on the left. Take a warm shower and change. I'll make some tea." Lily started to protest, partly out of pride, partly out of fear of owing him. But a deep chill running down her spine made her nod instead. When the bathroom door closed behind her, Lily caught her reflection in the fogged-up mirror. The face staring back was both familiar and strange. A girl drained and soaked to the bone, yet in her eyes flickered something fragile. Hope that maybe tonight she could sleep without fearing a slammed door or angry shouts. Outside, Ethan added more wood to the fireplace and quietly set a kettle on the stove. He didn't fully understand why he was doing this, only that, on this stormy night, leaving that girl outside had simply never been an option. Hot water ran down Lily's shoulders, easing the tremors that had shaken her for hours. She couldn't remember the last time she had bathed in warm water. The steam blurred the mirror, erasing the image of the exhausted girl who had knocked on a stranger's door. Outside, the kettle whistled softly. Ethan set 2 cups of tea on the wooden table near the fireplace, then returned to the kitchen. He pulled out some leftover chicken and a few vegetables from the fridge. The knife tapped gently on the cutting board, the faint scent of green onions blending with the calming aroma of tea. When Lily returned to the living room, her damp hair was wrapped in a towel, her shoulders swallowed in an oversized sweater, sweatpants brushing the floor. She looked both shy and oddly grateful for the stranger's quiet thoughtfulness. Ethan glanced up at the sound of her soft footsteps. "I hope the clothes aren't too big," he said, his voice as soft as the night breeze. "They're fine. Very warm," Lily murmured, pushing stray damp strands from her forehead. He nodded, gesturing to the armchair by the fire. The green tea gave off a gentle fragrance that seemed to soothe wounds she hadn't even named. "Do you want something to eat? I'm making some chicken soup." "I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble. I'm making it for myself anyway. One more bowl makes no difference." Lily didn't argue further. While she curled up by the fire, Ethan quietly stirred the pot. The savory aroma spread through the room, blending with the soft patter of rain against the windows. A few minutes later, he set a steaming bowl of soup in front of her. The rising steam fogged up his glasses for a moment. Lily looked at the soup, then at Ethan, her eyes burning with unshed tears. "Thank you so much." Ethan sat down in the chair across from her, hands wrapped around his cup of tea, eyes never leaving her. Lily lifted the spoon, sipping the hot broth. Warmth slid from her throat down to her belly, reawakening a part of herself she thought she had lost forever. They stayed silent for a while. Only the faint clink of the spoon against the bowl filled the room. Then Lily lifted her head and met Ethan's patient gaze. He didn't push, didn't interrogate. He just sat there, giving her the space to breathe. "Do you live here alone?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, breaking the hush. "Yes. I'm a writer. Solitude suits the job." Lily nodded slowly, tears pricking at her lashes. "I don't have anywhere to go anymore." Ethan didn't look surprised. He simply set his cup down, his voice low but steady. "Tonight, you don't have to think about that. Eat. You're safe here." And for Lily, the word safe had never felt so precious. Lily finished every spoonful of the soup, each warm mouthful calming the tremor in her cold hands. When she set the spoon down, she met Ethan's eyes watching her. Not hurried, not probing, just quietly there, like an unspoken promise. "Tonight, you're safe." He cleared the dishes, placing them in the sink but leaving them for later. The small living room now held only the soft crackle of the fireplace and the steady drumming of rain against the windows. Lily pulled the oversized sweater tighter around herself, her eyelids growing heavy under the weight of exhaustion. "You can sleep here if you like," Ethan said when he returned, his voice gentle like a breeze. "The living room's warm, but I have a guest room if you'd rather have privacy." Lily lifted her head, her lips parting. I don't want to trouble you." "You're not trouble. If anything, you make this place feel less empty." He pointed down the left hallway. "Last room at the end. Fresh sheets. Rest easy, Lily." She nodded slowly, rising to her feet, though her legs felt like stone. Ethan walked ahead, opening the door for her. The soft yellow light spilled over a simple white bed, a wooden dresser, and a small landscape painting on the wall. Everything was plain, but wrapped in a warmth she didn't understand yet. "Thank you. Thank you, Ethan." Her voice trembled, but the fear in her eyes had faded a little. Ethan didn't answer, just offered a faint, reassuring smile before gently closing the door behind her, leaving Lily alone with a gentleness she'd never known. She climbed onto the bed, the thick blanket cocooning her like a safe nest. Outside, the rain continued its steady song, the wind sometimes rattling the window lightly. But inside, Lily knew she wouldn't wake tonight to shouting or a door yanked open by angry hands. She buried her face into the pillow, eyelids finally giving in. From the crack under the door, the warm glow of the living room lamp still flickered faintly, enough to remind her that strange man was still awake, like a quiet sentinel guarding her fragile sleep. And for the first time, Lily drifted into sleep without curling up in fear. When Lily opened her eyes, the first rays of sunlight had slipped through the curtains, laying a soft beam across the white blanket covering her. For a moment, she forgot where she was, feeling only the warmth of a strange bed that somehow didn't feel frightening. She turned slightly, her cheek brushing the pillow, and the chirping of birds mixed with the sound of boiling water from the kitchen below pulled her back to reality. The lakeside manor, the stranger with the warm voice, and the first night she had slept without nightmares jolting her awake. Lily sat up, adjusting the oversized sweater that had shifted in her sleep. She quietly opened the door and stepped into a hallway bathed in soft light. The smell of fresh coffee and toasted bread drifted through the air, guiding her to the spacious, sunlit kitchen. Ethan stood by the gas stove, gently stirring a pan of scrambled eggs. Sunlight poured through the large window behind him, outlining his tousled brown hair in a soft glow. Gone was the thick sweater from last night. Now he wore a simple gray t-shirt and dark jeans, looking both ordinary and distant, as if the stormy night had never happened. Ethan turned when he heard Lily's quiet steps. His eyes met hers, holding that same gentle calm, as if last night's shelter was nothing unusual, but simply the most natural thing in the world. "Good morning," he smiled. "Did you sleep well?" Lily nodded. Just saying "well" felt so small, because she had slept better than she had in years. But no other words came to her, so she only pressed her lips into a shy smile in return. "Sit down. Coffee's ready. Want some honey with it?" She sank into a wooden chair, cupping the white ceramic mug he handed her. The warm, sweet steam warmed her fingertips. On the table were toasted bread, butter, and a few neatly arranged slices of fruit. "You didn't have to do all this," Lily murmured, the shy awkwardness returning. Ethan just chuckled softly, placing the plate of eggs beside her. "I always cook for myself. One more plate doesn't make a difference." She looked around the kitchen, everything tidy, clean, but not overly luxurious. A small vase of yellow daisies sat beside the tea jars. Each little detail made her forget she was still technically in a stranger's home. Her eyes paused on a thick stack of paper at the corner of the table, beside an uncapped fountain pen. Ethan followed her gaze, then laughed lightly. "A new manuscript. I'm revising it for the third time. Writing never gets easy." Lily pressed her lips together, gathering the courage to ask, "What's it about?" Ethan leaned back against the counter, his eyes drifting to some faraway place. "About lost souls. About people no one notices, but who still find a way back home." Lily tightened her hold on the warm mug, a faint smile curling her lips. Whether by chance or fate, she understood. This morning and this sunlit kitchen were a quiet reminder that maybe, just maybe, she too was beginning to find her own way home. The days that followed drifted by like a gentle dream Lily had never dared to dream. In the morning, she woke early to brew tea for Ethan while he sat at his desk, lost in the pages of half-finished manuscripts. By midday, she perched on the wooden porch, sketching the sunlit lake, the pine branches bending in the breeze, or Ethan himself as he quietly typed away behind the window. At night, they shared dinner at the long wooden table under the warm glow of a hanging lamp. The dishes were simple but spotless, and the conversation never seemed to run dry. Lily told him about the lost years in her foster family, about the dream of becoming an artist no one ever believed in. Ethan told her about the rejection letters he collected in his youth, the years swallowed by the chaos of the city, and the decision to retreat to this lakeside house to live true to himself. They rarely dug too deep into each other's wounds, yet they didn't need to. One person's loneliness mirrored the other's so perfectly, words were often unnecessary. Some days, when rain fell steady and soft, Lily would curl up by the window, listening to Ethan's keyboard tapping in the next room. That feeling, knowing someone was under the same roof, silent yet familiar, was a luxury she never imagined she would taste. Ethan changed too. He kept his study door open more often now, sometimes pausing to step onto the porch, standing quietly behind Lily, watching her draw. He didn't say much, but his eyes, when they rested on her, seemed gentler, as if some hidden door inside him had eased ajar. One evening, when the rain finally stopped, Lily opened the window wide, breathing in the rich scent of wet earth and fresh pine. Ethan stood behind her, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa, handing one to her. Their eyes met, in the soft chorus of frogs croaking in the misty garden. "Where will you go when the sky's clear again?" Ethan asked, his voice rough, carrying a cautious edge. Lily clutched the mug between her small hands. She had asked herself that question countless times: when to leave, where to start over, how to rebuild. But here, standing by this window next to a man whose quiet presence felt sturdier than any shelter she'd ever known, the answer didn't come as easily. "I don't know yet." Her voice was like dew resting on her lashes. "Maybe. I'm not ready to leave." Ethan didn't reply at once. He simply looked out over the lake, where the night water mirrored a blurred crescent moon through the thin mist. When he turned back to her, his eyes no longer held distance, but the warmth of a small fire in a winter storm. "Then stay," he said softly, his tone not a command but a gentle acceptance. "Stay if you want to. Stay if it brings you peace." Lily pressed her lips together, nodding faintly. Deep inside, she knew. The girl who once asked only for shelter for a single night had quietly put down roots in this house, just as this house had planted its roots deep within her. The days of drizzle wrapped the lakeside manor in a thin veil of mist, turning it into a quiet island cut off from the restless world. In that stillness, Ethan and Lily moved like 2 synchronized breaths. No need for too many words, yet understanding flowed naturally. They had simple but warm dinners. Ethan often made a plain stew, while Lily chopped vegetables, her hands swift yet sometimes clumsy, like a child learning to belong in a real kitchen for the first time. One evening, in the middle of dinner, Lily giggled when Ethan accidentally spilled extra salt into the soup. That laughter, light as a sunbeam, slipped through cold stone walls, filling spaces in Ethan's heart that silence had claimed for years. When the rain eased, they stepped out onto the porch without umbrellas. Drizzle beaded into tiny drops on Lily's hair, glistening under the porch's warm light. Ethan looked at her and felt something inside him soften. A softness no manuscript or locked study door had ever reached. "Aren't you afraid of catching a cold?" Ethan asked, his voice hoarse in the damp night. Lily tilted her face upward, raindrops clinging to her lashes. "I'm used to it. I used to hide in the backyard when I was little. Rain or shine, it didn't matter. Only when I was soaked through did I feel real." Ethan fell silent. He understood that feeling too well, needing a bit of pain, a bit of cold, to remind yourself you still existed in a world that never bothered to notice. They paced slowly under the porch roof, Lily's hand brushing Ethan's coat now and then. It was fleeting, but for both, it stitched 2 mended hearts, one beat closer together. Another night, with the fireplace glowing red, they sat facing each other, hands cupped around steaming tea. Lily stared into the flickering flames, her voice suddenly drifting far away. "When I was 2, my parents died in a car crash. I was too small to understand that dead means never coming back. After that, I bounced from one house to another. Each place promised to love me like their own, and every time, I ended up just an extra mouth to feed. She paused, fingers tightening around her cup, a tear slipping into the curling steam. No one ever really saw me as a person. Ethan listened, each word carving old scars open inside him too. Slowly, his voice broke the hush, low but certain. I was the same. Born into a family that looked respectable, but they were only good to their own money. When my parents died, they fought over every cent of inheritance. And me? Just baggage in the way. Firelight flickered in the depths of his eyes. Ethan clenched his hand once, then exhaled softly. I slept in abandoned car lots, begged for a job cleaning trash for a stale loaf of bread. 10 years later, I built everything from scratch, but all anyone ever saw was the name, the money. No one asked if I was okay. Lily shivered, whispering, "So you left, so you wouldn't have to pretend anymore." Ethan nodded, gaze locked on the flames. I was tired. I wanted a place truly quiet. And then, you knocked on my door. They looked at each other, neither needing more words. In the fire's glow, two shadows leaned closer together, warmth passing between them without a single touch. Lily's broken pieces, Ethan's old scars, laid bare. Nothing hidden. No more the successful novelist, no more the drifting girl. Just two lost souls who had somehow found each other on a rainy night. "Thank you," Lily's voice trembled like a blade of grass in the wind. "Thank you for opening the door." Ethan slowly reached out, his fingers brushing the back of her hand. His eyes softened, holding something Lily had never dared to hope for, a place to be seen and to stay. The days slowly turned into mild sunshine and gentle breezes. In the back garden, Lily planted new lavender bushes along the wooden fence, while Ethan built her a fresh bench under the old pine tree. Each small change was like a quiet confirmation. She was no longer just a passing guest. One evening, after a simple dinner of grilled cheese and pumpkin soup, Ethan suddenly suggested, "Come out to the porch with me for a bit. There's something I want to show you." They stepped onto the wooden porch. The lake breeze was cool, the water glittering under a sliver of young moonlight. Lily wrapped her sweater tighter around her shoulders, listening to crickets sing in the damp grass. Ethan stood by the railing, his fingers fumbling for words like a child learning to say something that mattered. At last, he turned to her, his gaze both tender and uncertain. At last, his voice broke the silence, rough and slow, as if afraid to shatter something fragile. "Lily, there's something I have to say, something I've held in too long." She turned, startled to meet the depth in his eyes, a look both steady and trembling, like a rock trying to hold back the tide. "I used to think I was strong enough to live alone in this house forever. I built walls around myself, every book, every locked door. But that night, when you stood at my door, soaked and shivering, I realized I was only strong because no one could reach the softest parts of me." He drew a deep breath, as if gathering every ounce of courage. "These days, every morning I wake up to your laughter, your painting. I feel this house breathe warmth it's missed for years. And I'm scared that one morning I'll open my eyes and it'll all go silent again." Lily swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the bench. Her heart clenched, hearing him confess the same fear that had haunted her, the fear of losing something just newly found. "Ethan, I don't know if I deserve all this kindness. I have nothing. I'm afraid I'll disappoint you." He let out a soft laugh, weary yet warm as a fireplace on a winter night. "You silly girl, Lily. You're exactly what I'd been waiting for without knowing it. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real, and you make everything around me feel real, too." He laid his hand over hers, the warmth seeping through her skin, sending her heart into a flutter. "So, I don't want you to see this place as a stopover anymore. I want you to stay. Not as a guest who fears the day she must leave, but as someone who will start everything over with me. Every meal, every sunrise, every storm. Will you? Can you do that?" Lily stood still, feeling every thud of her heartbeat echo in her chest. The lake breeze brushed past, tossing a few damp strands across her cheek, but she didn't bother to tuck them back. Ethan's eyes stayed on her, patient, never pushing, you sure?" Her voice was as soft as leaves brushing each other. I'm not like people around you. I don't know how to live with someone else. I'm not really good at anything, except drawing silly things." Ethan reached out his hand, very slowly, as if afraid any sudden move might frighten her away. His fingers gently brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "You think you're meaningless? Lily, every breath you take here brings this house back to life. These walls used to echo my loneliness. Now they echo your laughter. And that's worth more than every book I've ever written." Lily swallowed hard. Inside her, old fractured pieces began to knit together again, trembling, yet warm in a way she'd almost forgotten. "But what if one day you get tired of me?" she whispered, eyes shining with unshed tears. Ethan let out a quiet laugh, low and soft like the night wind. "Lily, do you know how many bad characters I write and delete every day? I can erase a terrible sentence any time, but if you ask if I could erase you from my life, I can't." He touched her cheek, that touch, gentle yet steady. "I can't promise everything will always be easy, but I promise I'll be here, however long you choose to stay." In that moment, Lily no longer heard the crickets or saw the moonlit ripples on the lake. All she could feel was the warm breath of the man before her, the first to show her what it meant to have a place to return to. She nodded, tears slipping down to soak the back of her hand gripping the railing. "Okay, then I'll stay, even if it's just for one more day and then another, until I decide it's time to go." Ethan lowered his head, his forehead resting lightly against hers. They stood there in the chill of night, two once lost souls now finding a small corner to lean on together. Far out on the lake, the gentle waves whispered like a witness. In the end, a heart that knows how to love always finds its way home. One early morning, when sunlight still clung like dew on the edge of leaves, Ethan took Lily away from the lakeside manor. He drove slowly through winding mountain roads until they arrived at a small, lush valley wrapped gently by sloping hills. "I come here whenever everything feels too heavy," Ethan said, his voice mingling with the soft wind, eyes fixed on the wild flowers scattered across the meadow. "This place has kept my secrets for years. Today, I want it to keep a new one." Before Lily could fully grasp his meaning, Ethan turned to her, his deep brown eyes warmer than the dawn. He knelt on one knee on the soft grass and pulled out a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver ring, no gemstone, no fancy design, but it shone with a sincerity impossible to hide. "Lily Carter, I thought I'd locked my heart away for good. Then you knocked on the wrong door and turned out to be the rightest thing in my life. I thought I'd live alone forever until you came. I want you to make this place, and me, your home if you want it. Be my wife?" Lily froze, her hand covering her mouth. Everything felt too quick, too beautiful, too terrifying for a girl who'd grown used to loss. But deep in her heart, her own voice whispered, "This is the man who pulled you back into the light." Yes. Her voice trembled, but her answer was sure. Ethan laughed, eyes misty, sliding the ring onto her finger with the same ink-stained hands that had written 1,000 lonely pages. They married quietly just a few weeks later. No fancy gown, no crowded aisle. Just the old lakeside house, a few sprigs of lavender Lily arranged herself, and 2 whispered vows exchanged under the waking sun. After the wedding, Ethan let Lily change everything. The living room walls were painted brighter, the bedrooms filled with her paintings, the shelves grew heavier with Ethan's new manuscripts. Lily returned to school, exploring every passion she had once buried deep: painting, photography, interior design, the manor becoming her first living masterpiece. Ethan, the man who had once been as cold and closed off as the stone walls he owned, was now gentle, open, and smiling more than anyone had ever seen him. He wrote more, but he also read every love letter Lily painted with her brushes and colors, hidden like little secrets in corners of their home. Within just weeks, the lonely house that once stood empty by the lake blossomed into a nest brimming with colors and new memories. Laughter replaced the quiet drip of rain on sleepless nights. The warmth of joined hands replaced old, heavy blankets. Lily was sketching a new scene: the house, the rippling lake, the faint outline of two figures sitting together under the wooden porch. She tilted her head, studying the painting, a small smile blooming on her lips. Anyone else might call it too plain, but only Lily knew. To earn this simple piece, she and Ethan had wandered through years of loneliness. Ethan stepped out onto the porch carrying 2 mugs of steaming mint tea. He set one down beside her, leaning slightly to peek at the sketch on her lap. "What are you drawing this time?" he asked, his voice low and warm. "Home," Lily answered simply, her eyes still tracing the unfinished brushstroke. "Our home." Ethan chuckled, the kind of smile that creased the corners of his eyes. He sat beside her, shoulder to shoulder, the steam from their tea mingling with the crisp autumn air. "You know," he murmured, gaze drifting over the clear blue lake, "the first time you knocked on that door, I thought it was a mistake." Lily turned her head, resting it lightly on his shoulder. Her voice was soft as drifting clouds. "So did I. A wrong door, a wrong rainy night. Turns out it was the truest thing I've ever done." Ethan laughed gently and pressed a kiss to the top of her head. One evening, as Lily was arranging fresh flowers in a porcelain vase on the dining table, she rested a hand on her belly, looked at Ethan, and whispered with a soft smile, "I want to have a baby." Ethan froze, then nearly broke into tears. He gathered her close, kissing her hair, whispering like a boy discovering his first sweet dream. "We'll raise our child surrounded by the love and safety we never had ourselves, the kind we both never knew when we were small." They stood together, as steady as the wooden porch that had withstood many storms. In their eyes, the past no longer weighed them down, only hope and the promise of countless gentle springs ahead. And then, one early dawn, as sunlight slowly spilled across the rippling lake, Ethan and Lily sat side by side on the porch, steaming mugs of mint tea warming their hands, shoulder to shoulder. They didn't say much, just listened to the birdsong, the whisper of waves, and the heartbeat of the one beside them beneath the morning blanket. Amid the mist and first light, they both knew. They had found the right heart behind what once seemed the wrong door, and they knew the rest of the story was theirs to write, together.